countdown of the best apps to use with Final Cut Pro. In fact, it's a list of the most valuable apps that will assist your Final Cut edits. This video includes techniques and concepts that are not found on any other tutorials for Final Cut on YouTube. At least not in one video anyway. You will be surprised at what some of the apps will do. Some apps you may not have heard of before. And finally, number one in the countdown is not the app you'd expect to be there. The video has taken me a considerable amount of time and research. I would appreciate that you like, subscribe and press the bell. So let's now look at number 10 on the list. The first that we're going to look at in this countdown of the top 10 apps to use with Final Cut is Keynote. Let's see how it works with Final Cut. We'll go to Keynote, we'll select a new file, select a basic black background, clear out the text, and then go to the inspector. And this is the important thing to do. And you need to change your background to no fill. You should also change your master slide to no fill as well. So those are important issues. Let's close the master slide now. And there's our first slide. We'll go to the one that I previously created. If you like, we could play the slideshow, and there it is. Next step, most important of all, is we need to export this out, and there's a trick here, so be careful. We need to send it to a movie, which is fairly logical. But the trick is that we need to send it with a transparent background. And if we look at resolution here, this is the one to select, and select custom. And we need to change it to Apple ProRes 4444 and make sure export with a transparent background is ticked. We'll just call it test. If we now move over to Final Cut, we can see there is the animated text. So now let's play this project with the text overlaid. So your first step is to restart Final Cut and see if that fixes the issue. Your second step, restart the computer. Then you will trash your preferences. Number 9 on the list is NeoFinder. Now, NeoFinder is a way of indexing your archived hard disks. It can also be used as a network server. When you download NeoFinder, you can use it for free on 10 external disks, and then it's $40 US to purchase. Organization is a key element of Final Cut. Not the least of that is, what do you do with the completed videos? They need to be archived, and on that basis you will probably need to have a number of hard disks to store that footage. Before we go to look at NeoFinder, let's just consider what we need to do in Final Cut before we go to archiving. If we select the library we're working in, probably you'll want to delete your generated project files. That's the render files. They take up space, and providing you have the original media, Final Cut will let you do this. The benefit here is that should you bring that project back into Final Cut to work with again in the future, those generated or render files will be recreated by Final Cut. And then we need to consolidate any media that may be outside of the Final Cut library. Then it will ask you whether you want to consolidate your optimized and proxy media, so say yes to that. And then it will go and consolidate all of those files together. And you'll notice up here in the top left hand corner, the progress bar is showing in the media management that it's consolidating the media. So what it's doing is it's dragging all of the files outside of the library and putting them into this library that you've selected here. It doesn't tell you that it's done it other than a little tick mark here or check mark here. So the trick really would be to go back and select consolidate project media and do it again, and then it tells you there are no files to consolidate. You should do the same thing with your motion content if you've been using motion. So any files created in motion will be brought into this library as well. So the library is complete and independent, and you're able to archive it by dragging it to your hard disk. What we're going to look at here is how NeoFinder works. Now, NeoFinder is an application that remembers the content of all of your hard disks in an index format, so that you can go to NeoFinder and selecting it, you can see your library of disks, and by clicking on any of these disks here, you can see an index of what's on those disks. It just shows you the names of the files, meaning that you can then attach that disk and access those files. Now, if you don't know where they are, you can simply type in here, and let's type Cameron, and it does a little search up there, and now we can see it. There is a FinalCut bundle or a FinalCut library, and it's on the 3 terabyte in this folder. So by clicking on the 3 terabyte, we can come down to the Stacy folder, and there is the FinalCut library. So at this stage, you could do two things. You can access it from that hard disk once you've attached it, or if it's an old style hard disk, USB or something like that, maybe a good idea to copy the library to one of your working Thunderbolt disks. And our number 8 application is Comic Life. Now, Comic Life will create really cool letters, characters or text that you can use in Final Cut. So let's just have a quick look now at how to create these in Comic Life. Best way would be to go to the template chooser, and then you have a number of templates that you can start with, or you can start with a blank one. But let's use this one here, double clicking that, and we don't want these extra items here, so I'll just delete those. But we will use the text, so you can use the standard text that they've got here, or you can import your own. I've used the Comic Life characters to create our numbering system in this video. So we'll use this one here. If I double click it, I can type in my text, so number 8. We may not particularly like that format, so we can select a different style, and once we've got that style, then we can manipulate the text as we would like. You can add different coloring systems. You can add different styles. You can also change your font. Quite like that one. So let's just manipulate that to suit. I'm not happy with the coloring, so let's go to some yellowish coloring. That's good. I like that. You can, if you want to, create your own comics or comic images. So you could go to your pictures library and bring in images here. Stylize those as you wish. You can bring text in as cartoon bubbles. So if you click on the blue, that will take the bubble there. If you click on the red, that will change the shape of the image here. There's a lot to be done, but I think from Final Cut's point of view, it's a way of creating those really dramatic title effects that are yours and yours alone. So to export that now, click on the export, and we'll take the DPI level up a little bit. We'll select images and select a TIFF or a PNG image, because if you do happen to do some alpha, and there is a way in Comic Life to be able to create an alpha or a transparent image. So we'll select TIFF there and save that, and then we can use that in Final Cut. So if we look over here in our browser, here is the letter. We can resize that for the whole screen, and there is our image to be used in Final Cut. Comic Life is available from the App Store, or if you download it directly from their website, there's a 30-day free trial. It may seem like an unusual choice for an app that would be used with a video editing program, But consider the situation where you need to emphasize a location for a business that you're videoing for, or you need to give some visuals of the city in which the client lives. We can type in the street and get a wide view, or look at the satellite view, even giving an impression of a flyover of the harbour bridge. We need to export this map or to save it, and there's only one choice in maps, and that is to save as a PDF. Final Cut prefers not to work with PDFs, so even though we're forced to save as a PDF, we will need to do so in this case, and then convert to another image format. Now when we go to the Finder, we can drag the image on top of Preview in the dock, and from there we can convert it by holding the Option key down, Save As, and then selecting PNG or TIFF as our images. We can import that into Final Cut. There it is there. We can drag it to the timeline, and then by selecting cropping, we can crop out the white sides, and there's our image to use as a location. Or we could use the flyover to see where the yachts are sailing in the harbour. With the introduction of Catalina as the 64-bit operating system for the Mac, all images require to be in 64-bit format. So all those old 32-bit images will not work on the Mac or in Final Cut Pro. So this makes it important to have an app that will convert these files. Welcome to the VLC Media Player, a free app. In the meantime, I would also advise that you check Apple's Incompatible Media webpage. The link is in the description below. VLC will read most image format and will convert these files into a format that can be used by Final Cut Pro. You'll find that the AVI format is one of the most common that you will encounter. So let's look at an AVI file and see how we can work with that in Final Cut. In the last listing for Apple's maps, we looked at those maps and put them in as locators for the yacht race on Sydney Harbour. We could also use the world globe to stream into those locations. So I have an AVI, which is the spinning globe. If I drag that now into the Final Cut application, you'll see that it says it's not a compatible file. So as it stands, we can't use it. What we need to do, though, is to go to that image, the world globe, and we'll take it down and we'll put it on top of VLC. So VLC has read that file and it's showing us the globe spinning. If we want to convert that now, then we will need to come to the File menu and select Convert. We'll need to drag that globe file on top of the drop media location. So let's find it in the Finder and drag it in there. World globe, and then we can decide what format we want to convert that to. So MP4, H.264 is the best choice in this case, and then decide where we want to store it. So we'll call that globe, and now we'll save it, and there it is there as an MP4 file. So we can simply drag that into Final Cut. And if we look here, we can see the image there in the browser. We can now simply drag that into the timeline. And then when we play through, there's the converted AVI file playing in Final Cut. Number 5 on our list is Handbrake. Now, Handbrake is used for converting footage into a format that Final Cut can use. For our instance this time, we're going to use Handbrake to convert the footage on a DVD and be able to use that in Final Cut. So what we need to do is to open Handbrake, and I have it in the dock down here, and we need to open a source. Then it's going to look for the DVD that we have installed, and it's going to ask you whether your material is copyrighted. I suggest that you don't copy copyrighted material, but Handbrake most likely will be able to do it anyway. So let's select that. And here is our DVD footage. So on the left-hand side here, we can select the preset of format that we want to use. So under General, Currently it's selected at 1080p at 30 frames per second, or you can use the better quality here. So let's select 25 frames per second as we're in a PAL area. And then we select the format we want to convert to. So let's convert to an MP4 file, and we're going to save that in a particular location. You can type the name in of what you want it to be called, and you can browse your Finder to find the file you want to put it in. And now we're ready to go. We can add this to a queue and then put other items in there to be converted. But in our case here, we just have this one item to do. So let's start the encode, and you can see that it's encoding it down the bottom here. If we look over here in preview, we can see what it's doing. At any time you can pause this, do something else, and come back to it. It takes some time to encode, and you'll notice down here it's giving an ETA of around 45 minutes to encode what is about an hour's video on the DVD. So from here we'll go into FinalCut and have a look at the footage. If we look at our Finder, we can see the file that Handbrake has created, read at Stacy, and we can open that in Quicktime, and you can see the chapters that were on the DVD. Now we'll put this into FinalCut and we'll start a new project. And since we had it at 25 frames per second, let's make that the same here. We'll drag the footage into the project, and there is the DVD footage ready to be edited. The fourth application is Audacity, and Audacity is used to correct your audio. What we would need to do is to take that audio out of FinalCut. We'd export it as a WAV file and then import it into Audacity to correct the audio. In this particular instance, we have an audio file here with a lot of background noise.
He truly works to produce the best possible outcome for you. I've got to admit, he does his homework. He makes sure he provides me with regular updates.
Now, one of the things you'll notice in this clip, other than the background noise, is there are a couple of stutters. Now, I put markers into where those stutters are, and I'm going to show you how we will remove those stutters. First of all, I'm going to zoom into the locations where they are and listen.
Work. He makes sure.
So there is an extended make sure in this marker here. What we're going to do is select the R key, and I'm going to select or put a range over that particular part there and come up to the speed controls, and we're going to speed that up by 400 or 4 times the speed. So let's now listen to that and see how that plays through.
He does his homework. He makes sure.
It's too much. We need to slow that down a little bit. So let's slow it down to twice or 2 times.
His homework. He makes sure.
So he makes sure is much clearer now than it was before. Now the other one here is a stutter.
He provides me.
So provide. So what we'll do is we'll take out these 2 items here. So we'll just simply cut it here and cut it there. And now when we look,
he provides me with.
There's a slight jump there. So what we might try and use is the built-in Apple transition, which is under the dissolve index, and it's called flow. Now flow is best used as its default settings. So let's just try that now and see how that looks.
He makes sure. He provides me with.
So there's virtually nothing there. There's a slight fuzziness as you go through. If I play it through frame by frame, you can't see the jump cut there. Next, coming up to this one here.
He provides me with regular.
There's a pause at that location between there and there. And so we'll use the range tool again, and we will cut out that pause, and we'll try that at 4 times.
provides me with regular update.
That's pretty clean now. So that solved the initial issue of the ums and the ahs. What we're going to do now is to export the audio of this clip and take it into Audacity and then remove that background sound. So we'll come up to the share menu and we'll select wave, send that off to Audacity now. Once we've launched Audacity, then we can take the file we've just saved and drag it on top of the interface. It's going to create a copy, as it says here. And now, as we play through that,
He truly works to produce the best possible.
you can hear that audio in the background. So what we're going to do is to look for the loudest part of that audio. And it's in these portions here where that background sound is. And this certainly seems to be the loudest point here. So we're going to go up to the effects menu and we're going to select noise reduction and simply get a noise profile. Then we'll select the whole clip, that's Command A to select all, and come back to the effects and select the noise reduction again. And this time we'll be in step 2 and we'll look at how to reduce that noise. Now it's set on 18 at the moment, which is normally quite high, so I'm going to bring that down to 10 and then we'll do a preview and see if we can hear that noise background still.
He truly works to produce the best possible outcome for you.
There's still a little bit there, so I'm going to take that up to, say, 14, and let's hear it now.
He truly works to produce the best possible outcome for you. I've got to admit, he does his homework.
I could barely hear the background noise there, so now let's take this back to FinalCut. We'll export it as a WAV file again that retains the high quality. And this time we'll call it Audacity Fixed so that we know it's a different file from the original one, which was just Audacity. And now we'll go back to FinalCut Pro. And what we're going to do is import that file. So we'll go to the Audacity Fixed and we'll drag it into FinalCut. And then we're going to reduce the audio from the original clip. And then going to audio here, coming up to Audacity Fixed and drag that in and drag it so that it shows exactly at the beginning of the clip and exactly at the end. And so now it will be in sync. Now let's have a listen now.
He truly works to produce the best possible outcome for you. I've got to admit, he does his homework. He makes sure he provides me with regular updates.
That's got rid of the noise and those little stutters as well. On to our number 3 candidate, and this one will be a surprise to some people. I guess a lot of you would have expected this to be the number 1 application. And while it may be a very valuable and useful tool, from a FinalCut point of view, there are a lot of other tools that can do the same things. And of course, I'm talking about Photoshop and also Photoshop Elements. Let's have a look at the features in Photoshop that are useful for FinalCut. And the main feature that FinalCut would use from Photoshop's point of view is the layers feature. Now there are a number of other applications that can handle layers and they will do similar things to what you're about to see now, and they would be Pixelator and CorelDRAW. Anyway, let's get on to Photoshop. And the first thing we do is select a new document. And the key to this one is you want to make sure the background contents are transparent, that the color is RGB, and it's 8-bit. Now, if it's not RGB and if it's not 8-bit, this will not work. The transparent background is a good feature for you to have anyway. I've got one here that we've already created. And talking about layers, here are the layers on this particular Photoshop document. So the black headphones are on that layer. The word national is on that layer and the green cross is on that layer. We also have, in this case, a white background that when you take that off, you can see the transparent showing through there. Now, the idea of keeping a white background here is that since it's a layer, you can always take it off when you put it into Final Cut anyway, but it's just there for convenience. So once we've created the Photoshop document, how do we save it? We come to the File menu and Save As. And again, these are important things to do. You need to make sure that layers are turned on, and you also need to make sure that it's a Photoshop document. That will be a .psd file. So once that's saved, then we can go into Final Cut and use this document. Let's import that file into the timeline and use the layers feature. So here's the file here sitting on the Finder. We can simply drag that and pop it into our project, and there it is up there. And you'll notice in the top left-hand corner there's a little icon that gives a layer symbol. As we drag that into our timeline now, and we can see the combination of all of the layers showing there. Now if we double click on this, it pops it open, and now we see the individual layers. So the top one here is the headphones, and that's the black layer. So if I were to disable that, that goes away, just so that you can see the effect. Now what we can do with these is that we can animate some of these items here. So for instance, the center, that's the green cross in the center here, we could have that grow from zeros. If I select on that and click my transform and set a keyframe, then we can make that a really small plus. And then when we move through the timeline, let's take it to here and now increase the size of that. Then when we play this, the cross gradually grows. To add from that, we could have the black headphones slide in from the side and then join the green cross. So let's try that. And so if we want it to come back to the exact position, let's take the playhead to where we want it to finish. So this is where we would want it to be the normal size. So we will select a keyframe there and then take the playhead back to the beginning and drag it off the screen. If we use the Shift key, that will make sure it goes off in a horizontal plane. And now when we play that, there's the headphones coming in and the green cross growing. Let's have a look at this in the timeline with the rest of the video. Now before we do anything, let's remove or disable the white background so that just the logo and the word mark will show. So if we move back to the timeline now, let's just play it through now. And there you are. And so to number 2. In fact, the next 2 apps are perhaps not the most featureful of apps, but they are the ones that you will use most of the time with Final Cut. In fact, probably every day. Both of these apps ship with your Mac. So number 2 on the list is Quicktime. This is an app that not only plays your videos, but allows you to trim as well as record. So let's have a look at Quicktime. You can create a new movie, which is in fact using your webcam on the computer. You can record audio on the computer. You can see the voice levels there. And on this little drop down, selecting your microphones. Once you press record, it's now going to record my voice because I'm using Quicktime to record this session. Then when I stop that recording, I can play it back. It's now going to record my voice because I'm using Quicktime to record this session. And you can save that to play it back in Final Cut. You can do a new screen recording, and this will give you the option to capture the entire screen or just a window, currently the open window, or it will select a portion of the screen so that you can record that. And then you can open a file if you wish, and that will play any Quicktime capable video. Let's open this wedding file here. It will play that file.
Ever may come.
If you wish, you can show the inspector here and it will tell you what type of file that is, what the resolution is, etc., and the data size and the bitrate. Also with this, you can go to the edit menu and select trim, And now what trim will let you do is to trim just to a portion. So let's just say we want to do the vowels only, and we can trim that. Then we can save it. Once it's saved, then within Final Cut, after we open a new project, we could go to the Finder and drag the clip in there.
Got some important documents to sign. Okay, it's now my pleasure to present the bride and groom with their official marriage certificate.
And finally, our number one app. This may be not the app you would have expected, but it is number one because you'll use it every day, and in its simplistic way, it will replace a lot of the things you would have used Photoshop for in relationship to Final Cut Pro. You can use Preview to create text files, to build up multiple images, to remove backgrounds, even scan documents and take photos with an iPhone. So let's have a look at Preview. If we look up in the File menu, you can see Import from Phone. And on your iPhone now, you will see that you can take a photo. You can scan the document and it will show up in Preview. You can take screenshots, so we could take a particular selection, drag the crosshairs around, and there's that screenshot. Typically, what you would use Preview for with Final Cut is to work with still images. Now, if we go to a web page now and select an image on that page, and we're going to select an image here that has a transparent background. So if I simply right click on that now, I can copy that image. And then when we come to Preview, we can open a new file from the clipboard. So new from clipboard. And what that does is that brings the image up here for us to work with. Now we could simply go in and export here and save that and use it with a transparent background, or we could do some different things with it. So let's come to the tools here and we'll select annotate. And for instance, we could put a speech bubble in there and you could type some text in that. So when you see here that your toolbar is open, and that's opened up from this little A here, so that opens and closes the toolbar, we can select the text tool and you'll see there's some text down there, and we can type in that hello, well, with an O, hello, all very interesting. Let's just delete those for now. What else can we do with this? Well, if we use this rectangular tool here, we can select part of an image, so we could click on this here and delete that out of the image, or putting that back there, we could use the smart lasso. This is a lot smarter. And clicking on the edge here, we can just draw this over the image and it highlights the actual image for us, taking it out and leaving the shape behind. Undo that. We could remove the background. So by clicking on this tool here, you could gradually remove the background. So we could remove that background there by deleting it. We could also remove this checkerboard and delete that. And now we can go and save that image or export it, and we'd export it. And what we'd want to do is to export it with an alpha channel as either a PNG or a TIFF file. And then we can use that in Final Cut. So now let's try and do something else with this image. Let's build up some multiple images. Coming to Safari, and we'll just open a new window, and using Preview's screenshot from a selection, we can select this particular image here, copy it and paste it, so that we're now building up multiple images within the same frame. Let's take the Final Cut logo and pop that in here. We'll put that one over there. Now, if this isn't big enough, we can resize it. Resize this one. Maybe take another one here. So how about the A and pop that in here. If we want to, we can increase the size of the whole image by clicking on this expand here. We can make it into a 1920 image. Turn off the scale proportion, and there's the 1920 image that will fit directly into Final Cut. We can export that now. So now when we go to import those files in Final Cut, and look again here, there's the multi-image, there's the untitled image we saved earlier, and let's import both of those. And there's the first image we created with its transparent background. There's the second image we created with the multiple files. So that shows our #1 application. I hope you've enjoyed this countdown of 10 best apps for Final Cut. Please subscribe, press the bell and like. It'll allow me to make more videos for you.